I've got a lot of support,
Yeah.
an enormous amount of support.
Nicole Kidman.
Life. I will always say that about him.
How could a marriage built on a life-saving intervention, one of Hollywood's most enduring love stories, quietly collapse? This wasn't a celebrity feud, it was the story of a secret emotional battle, one waged for 2 decades, which only Nicole Kidman's quiet tears and a single shocking lyric change finally exposed. Keith Urban's ultimate struggle wasn't with his own demons, but with the debt of survival, the unbearable weight of perpetually owing his life to the woman he loved. Their story began with a white wedding and ended in a blinding crisis, a trajectory few saw coming. They married in 2006, Nashville's rock and roll heart marrying Hollywood royalty. But 4 months after their lavish Sydney ceremony, the celebration turned to a whispered disaster. Urban entered a rehabilitation center. Friends later recalled that his sobriety had been more of a hopeful conversation than a condition. But Nicole's resolution changed everything. She staged the intervention that night and forced him to confront the truth he had deferred for years. He called himself very, very blessed, a phrase that became shorthand for his wife's fierce resolve. For Nicole, their marriage instantly became an act of faith under siege. For Keith, love became both a sanctuary and a constant glaring mirror reflecting his flaws. While the tabloids branded her the rehab bride, she visited him quietly, avoiding the cameras. When he emerged months later, reborn, he credited her patience and poured his immense gratitude into his music. His 2007 album carried the scars of that near collapse, and for years he seemed reestablished, not just as a sober artist, but as a husband making good on his second chance. On award stages, he thanked her first, every speech sounding like a hymn of repayment. The world saw devotion, but those closer to him sensed a quieter, more exhausting tension. The sheer perpetual weight of owing one's survival to another person. Producer Dan Huff once said Keith worked like a man who owes someone everything. For years, that emotional debt fueled a relentless creativity, bringing platinum records and Grammys. The couple appeared as the embodiment of grace, having faced catastrophe and come out whole. Yet even miracles cast shadows. By 2016, Urban confessed in an interview that the hardest part of marriage wasn't the storm, but the calm. A hint at the fatigue of being perpetually defined as the man she saved. Their professions kept them apart for months at a time. Her film sets spanned continents, his tours looped endlessly. Distance doesn't invent problems, as one friend put it. It simply magnifies what never healed. The cracks began to show in public tone. Nicole's praise grew more careful, her energies reflective rather than effusive. When she told Vanity Fair that marriage is a dance where sometimes one leads and sometimes both get lost, readers sensed weariness behind the poetry. Keith's own songs, despite their optimism, began to throb with undeniable melancholy underneath. The gratitude that had once felt redemptive now sounded almost rehearsed. Then came September 30th, 2025, the day Nashville court filings confirmed the unthinkable. Nicole Kidman had filed for divorce after 19 years, citing irreconcilable differences. There were no accusations, no public quarrels, just a quiet document and a seismic reaction. But the real shockwave had hit 2 nights earlier. Urban had performed at the Ryman Auditorium and altered a single iconic lyric in The Fighter, the song long associated with their life together. The line that once declared, "Just stay, I'll fight for you," was replaced. It became, "Sometimes the fight means letting go." There was no dedication, no context, just the cold change. But in the fevered language of the internet, subtlety equals confession. The clip went instantly viral. Millions of views, captions crying betrayal, threads dissecting motives. Some saw courage in him rewriting his own history. Others saw the disrespect of a man symbolically deleting his debt of gratitude. This was the man who had told the world she saved his life. Had that story simply expired? The public outcry was immediate and visceral. Social media quickly dubbed it the divorce of the ungrateful, resurrecting the old narrative that refused to let him evolve beyond the man rescued in 2006. The measured statement from his management claiming setlists vary and no lyric was aimed at any individual did nothing to stop the outrage. Sympathy tilted instantly toward Nicole, whose refusal to speak became its own eloquence. "The man she saved just broke the song she gave him," one viral comment read, echoing thousands of times. Amid the noise, the truth was quietly surfacing. What happens when a lifetime of gratitude turns to crippling emotional fatigue? Urban quickly canceled his upcoming Australian tour, citing personal reasons. He posted a 1-minute black-and-white clip, no guitar, no smile, just the cryptic caption, "Every song has ghosts. I'm learning which ones to keep." The fall that followed was not a dramatic crash, but a slow, agonizing fade. He withdrew from public view, retreating to his Nashville studio where lights burned through the night, though few heard music from within. Reports in the Tennessean described him working alone, cycling through the same riffs, lost in creative purgatory. Friends insisted that it wasn't a relapse, but pure exhaustion, the kind born from trying to make sense of your own mythology under a public microscope. Across the Pacific, Nicole was captured in Sydney, ringless but radiating serenity. Her quiet composure became the final eloquent punctuation mark. In an old 2020 interview, Urban had confessed, "I don't handle shame well. It's the old trigger." That trigger returned as headlines blurred truth and cruel speculation. Insiders claimed he avoided social media. Others whispered of sleepless nights scrolling through commentary that painted him as ungrateful. A studio technician later described seeing open tabs of gossip sites on his mixing desk at 3 a.m., the glow of judgment reflected in the glass. Eventually, the noise collapsed into a strange stillness. For days, he sat at the piano, playing 2 chords, then none. Yet beneath the exhaustion, a new, surprising project began to form. Sources later confirmed Urban started drafting a piece tentatively titled Grace Note. No lyrics leaked, but a line was scrawled on his studio wall. "Forgiveness has its own key, and I'm still tuning." Those who heard fragments described them as fragile, human, and unfinished, the sound of someone learning to speak without defending himself. By late October, whispers of a charitable concert emerged, a one-night event at the Ryman named Songs for Second Chances. The proceeds, according to reports, would go to the Betty Ford Center, the facility where Urban first entered treatment in 2006, and to a women's shelter long supported by Nicole. The idea, collaborators confirmed, was his alone. "He wants to play the old songs exactly as they were written," said a session guitarist. "No edits, no hidden messages." That detail mattered. The public's anger had centered not merely on rumor, but on the fear that he had rewritten gratitude itself. Restoring every lyric was his final, powerful way of reclaiming sincerity. If the concert happens, he is expected to open with The Fighter in its original, unedited form. Both lives have settled into quieter rhythms. Keith remains at Nashville, and Nicole has resumed filming in Australia on a limited series titled Grace of Silence, a title that feels unintentionally autobiographical. When asked recently if she still believes in happy endings, she replied, "I believe in honest ones." It was the only statement she has made since the divorce, and perhaps the only one needed. Between them now lies no feud, no spectacle, just the distance that maturity sometimes requires. They stopped being each other's story and started being their own. Their story is a painful parable about what happens when love and salvation become the same word. The longer they lived within that narrative, the heavier it became. Because gratitude, though noble, can calcify into a cage of identity. Keith's alteration of his song was an attempt to be an artist, to acknowledge impermanence, but the public read it as disloyalty. The deeper question their quiet separation poses is this: can a love built on salvation survive once the crisis passes? The answer, quiet but clear, was no. To end a story without resentment is a radical victory over ego. Forgiveness, after all, doesn't always mean reunion. Sometimes it's learning to wish the other well from afar.